Well, good afternoon. How are you all doing on this fine spring-like day? I hope you are all doing well. Now, recently I've been asked by a few different people how I dial my bracket car and the method I use to dial my car before making a pass. Now, in my opinion, if you are a serious racer and you want to be as competitive as you absolutely can be, owning some sort of a weather station is a must. Does that mean you need a weather station to win? Of course not. But owning one and using it properly is a clear advantage over someone that does not own one. And that's the thing, using it properly. A weather station is nothing more than a sophisticated tool. And a tool is only as good as the person operating it. If you do not use it properly, you are not going to get the desired outcome that you are hoping for. Now you may ask, how do you use a weather station properly in bracket racing? Well, first of all, you need a car that is consistent. And with consistency comes predictability. And how do you come up with them two things, you may ask? The first thing you have to do is come up with a tune-up for the suspension and the engine and the whole car actually that is going to get you down any track at any time in any condition. Now, your car may run slower because it's not on full kill, but that's bracket racing. The fastest car does not always win. So once you have your car set up, you can start logging your runs. Now this weather station here that I own, it's what we call a handheld. You can get much more expensive ones that are actually mounted to the race trailer in the pits and will send the information to the driver in the car via a pager, keeping them up to date on the weather conditions. Now, as far as handhelds go, there are many different makes, models, and price ranges depending on the options. This one here I would consider a middle of the road, and it works extremely well for me. Now the way a weather station works is it's going to take an air sample and it's going to collect all kinds of data. It's going to collect the temperature, the dew point, barometer, grains of water, humidity, vapor pressure, and most importantly, density altitude. You can use different methods to predict with a weather station, but the normal way and the way I do it is with the density altitude. So once you have your car and your weather station all set up, now this particular one here has 10 separate databases and you can log 40 runs per database. That allows you to have a database for each track, or you can have a database for eighth mile, a database for quarter mile, or even a database for different cars, which means a couple people could get together and share a weather station and log the cars individually. But seeing that us racers are pretty secretive, usually sharing a weather station doesn't work out real well. So if I can get my phone to focus here, I will go through the screen and the setup of my weather station. Just hold on a second. Okay, first thing you're going to do is you're going to turn it on. And it's going to tell you you're on what database you're on and the version of the software and everything. Now your first screen on the menu is your sample air, your setup. That's where you'd go in and set up your individual databases, your run entry, and predict. Now that predict, that's where you would go in and you would manually put in different parameters to figure out what your car would run in certain situations. And you go on to your next menu, download. That's where you can actually hook this weather station to your computer, and you can print out logs. Set clock, well, that's obvious. Show bad runs. So as you log runs, and like I said, this has 10 different databases. You can log 40 runs per database. So if you want, you can just go in there and you can click on show bad runs, and it's going to tell you if you had a run that doesn't fit the database. Meaning that, maybe you spun or you put the wrong information in or whatever. And of course, your auto power off, you can go in there and change it whether it stays on all the time or it automatically shuts off at a given time. Now, sample method. There you can go in and you can choose two different things. You can have it that it constantly is updating while it samples air, or the other method is it'll go in and it'll sample air, and then when it stabilizes, that's where it'll stay. Now, I find, like a lot of others, that I always want mine to constantly sample the air and update itself. And then, of course, you got your battery check. That's quite obvious. So we'll go back here, and let's go into sample air. So what you're going to do, now the first thing you have to do is when you get to the racetrack, you have to put this weather station out in the air that you're going to be racing in. And it's very important not to have it in direct sunlight. So you want it somewhere in a shaded area. You don't want it really real close to exhaust fumes or anything like that. And so before you make a run, and as I said before, you got to have a consistent car. So when my car leaves the pit, it has the exact same amount of fuel load in it. That's to do with weight. The exact same tire pressure every time is 10.5. Actually, when it leaves the pits, it has 11.5 pounds of air in it. Reason it has that is if you're up in the staging lanes for an extended amount of time, whether there's an oil down or a problem on the track with the sensors or whatever, if I was to put in the 10.5 pounds that I normally run, and you get up there and you're up there for an extended amount of time, your air pressure may go down. Or you could be up there and sunlight could lay on your tire and you could go up to 11 pounds. So I always leave with 11.5, maybe 11, and then when it's in the staging lanes and when there's about five pairs of cars ahead, that's when I will lower the air pressure to what I want. So before I go to make a run, I'm going to take an air sample. And another important thing is you take the air sample in the exact same spot every time. Now, and a lot of times, I'll have someone take the air sample instead of me doing it before we leave the pits. I'll have someone do it just before we make the run. And so we'll turn it back on and went to sleep. So it's doing its thing there. And now, like I was saying, down here you have a hold button. So when you take an air sample, you can push the hold button, and that will that will hold that weather. So when you go to log a run, which is in here in run entry, it could be like hours later, and you just go in there, and when you log your run, it'll ask you current weather or weather held. So it's not necessarily for you to rush back and log your run. As long as you hold the air when you take that sample, you can use that hours later. So let's sample some air here. As you can hear, there's a fan. Right there is a tunnel. There's a fan in there, and it sucks the air through the tunnel over the sensors, and that's where it gets all its readings from. So we'll start on the left side. Up at the top, that's your date. 73 and 74, right now it's 73.4. That's the temperature. And you have 38, hold on, 39 grains of water. GOW, that's grains of water. That's one of the biggest things I look at. That's going to tell you a lot. The grains of water in the air affects a carburetor and the performance of an engine an awful lot. So on that line there, it flops back and forth between grains of water and the 30.11. That's your barometer. And then on the lower left, you got your coefficient factor, and then your DA. That's your biggest number right there that you want to look at. That's the most important, because that's what I have. You can set it up to predict using different things, but the most common is DA. Now, different cars react differently. My car, well, the Mustang I had that I sold, it would take 300 feet of elevation change, roughly, to change the dial 1/100ths. Now, over here on the right side, you got your time, your 34.6, that's your humidity, and then you got your vapor pressure. And right now, seeing that I have once you have at least a minimum of 2 runs logged in, while you're sampling air, that's what you're going to predict. So right now, if I was outside and I was getting ready to make a run, that's what it's predicting according to all the other runs I have in the database. It took all that information. Just hold on. It took all that information, and it compiled it all together, and the current condition, and it's predicting that my car would run a 10-12. Now, obviously, we're inside, and no air movement and stuff like that. Outside in the fresh air, it would be in the 10-0s at least. But, so, right there, it's showing 10-12. Now, what I would do is, if I was getting ready to make a run, I would push the hold button right here. See? Data held. So I'd go to my car, and right now it's showing 10-12 as a dial. That's what it's predicting. So what I would do is I would put a 10-11 on it, on the window. Reason I would do that is because this, with the information I have in here, I'm so particular about putting in the right stuff. Like, an example of that would be, if you put in data that from a run that you got a little squirrely, or it spun a little bit, or that's going to affect your database. But I'm very particular, so this is very accurate. So it's predicting the 10, 12, but that could be a 10, 11 with a 9. So I always go down 100ths. So it's predicting a 10, 12. I would put on the window a 10, 11. That's going to prevent me, hopefully, from breaking out. I know this is a real short explanation on how it works, but if anyone wanted, I could actually go in and show you how to log a run, enter it in the logs, do a total setup on a database. Anything anyone wants, I can show them how to do with this. And like I said, this is not just for your bracket racer. Your heads-up racer is going to take this information and it's going to tell them what tune-up they can put in their car to get the most performance out of it. This weather station, actually, for the heads-up guy, it has a log in there. It's going to, and from previous information, it will tell you, it has a Holley jet guide in there, so it'll tell you what to jet your carburetor in between rounds. And for the index racer, it will tell you what to put in your timer, whether you have a base plate or a linkage style throttle stop. It'll tell you how much time to put in there so you can run an 890, 990, or 1090, whatever you're doing. And for the index racer, it also has, it'll also tell you which easy plate to put in there. Basically, all that is a restrictor plate, using a restrictor plate instead of a throttle stop to slow the car to a certain time. I know I don't explain things very well, and that was a bit of a jumping all over the place, but I hope that answers some questions in a roundabout way. And if anyone wants to know anything more or show a little bit more on logging runs or how the throttle stop timer and stuff feature works, I'll be more than willing to help. Hope you all have a great day.